From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, this is From the South, and I am Soini Gray. Tragedy in Paraguay. The Minister of Agriculture, Luis Netting, has died along with 3 other people in the aircraft. CCTV footage circulating on social media shows the plane taking off where it immediately got into difficulty. The Special Search and Rescue Unit confirmed the fatalities along with the deaths of the Vice Minister of Agriculture, Vicente Ramirez, the technician, Luis Carlote, and the pilot Gerardo Lopez. Netting was returning to the capital after visiting his terminally ill mother, who died just hours after her son. Contact was lost with the aircraft last night until it was later found near the airport of Ayulas, 300 kilometers from the capital Asuncion. The Paraguayan Senate has declared 3 days of national mourning. President Nicolas Maduro has made a number of major announcements regarding a new Venezuelan currency and other economic measures. The bolivar, now called the Bolivar Soberano or Sovereign Bolivar, will no longer be tied to the dollar. The Sovereign Bolivar will now be anchored to the Petro cryptocurrency, which is based on the value of oil. This major change aims to stabilize the currency as the country continues to deal with hyperinflation. The new currency will come into use on August 20th. It divides the current value by 10,000, meaning 5 zeros will be removed from the currency.
The reconversion of the currency based on the program of recovery and economic prosperity will definitely start on August 20, when the new sovereign bolivar will be issued and put into circulation. The new monetary system is going to have a new method of being anchored to the Petro, the Venezuelan cryptocurrency, and this new monetary system of the sovereign bolivar, anchored to the Petro, will stabilize and change the monetary and financial life of the country in a radical way.
In an earlier program, I spoke to Alex Main about the new currency. He's a researcher at the Center for Economic and Policy Research in Washington. He praised President Maduro's decision to come up with a new currency, especially one that will see 5 zeros removed from the bolivar as a way to address hyperinflation and strengthen the economy, the currency.
In terms of the effect of now pegging this new currency to the Petro, we'll have to see what results. Really, the essential factor is psychological. There needs to be confidence in the new currency. There needs to be confidence, therefore, in the cryptocurrency, in the Petro, and its sustainability. And it remains to be seen whether this will be effective. Our think tank has recommended to the government for some time now that they allow the currency to float against the major foreign currencies of the world, the currencies that, in fact, do have some confidence behind them, that there should be free convertibility with these currencies. We'll see whether the Petro has the same effect. We're a little bit skeptical, but certainly we have to hope that this will have a positive effect.
Now, to help us further understand the significance of these economic announcements, we're being joined live by Greg Wilpert, writer and journalist based in Quito. Hi, Greg. Thank you so much for joining us. The Venezuelan economy, with its hyperinflation and absurd levels of speculation on the bolivar, is clearly in need of repair. Do you think that the sovereign bolivar being tied to the Petro instead of the dollar is the solution?
Yes, I think that could be a very good solution because, I mean, of course, it depends on how exactly the Petro is bought and sold, which isn't, hasn't entered into full functioning yet. But if the Petro is freely available for people, that would be an easy way to stabilize the value of the currency because, the bolivar would be tied to the Petro and the Petro would be tied to access that everyone would have in order to basically stop the hyperinflation. But like I said, it all depends then on exactly how the Petro is accessed that is bought and sold.
Now, President Maduro also made mention of a number of steps to try and boost production in the Venezuelan economy. What do you think are the most important of these, and how might they work?
Well, it's certainly a good step forward. I think, for example, that they want to reform the law on the illegal exchange, because right now the creation of a black market for the currency is, I think, one of the main reasons for the hyperinflation, or at least one of the main contributing factors, not the only one. So that's a very important step in the right direction. And I would say that the other measures, of which the president named several, such as also to stop the charging of tariffs for import. I think as a temporary measure, that's very important as well in order to facilitate the imports. So that's an important step. Also, of course, one has to take into account if you're importing things that are cheaper abroad than they can be produced in Venezuela, that will hurt domestic industry. But as a temporary measure, that would certainly help in terms of resolving the shortages that currently exist in Venezuela.
In general terms, do you think that ordinary Venezuelans can expect to see immediate benefits from these changes, or will they take a long time to feed through into everyday life?
Well, this is difficult to say. I mean, certainly, I think it will help slow down the hyperinflation once it's introduced on August 20th, just because of the expectations of greater economic stability. But then whether or not it actually halts hyperinflation, like I said, really depends on the details of the plan, which I haven't seen yet. I don't think anybody has seen yet. So we have to wait and see. However, having said that, I think if the Petro is freely accessible, then that could put a very quick halt to that. It would be like introducing a new currency that isn't fixed, and that would certainly contribute to halting the hyperinflation. But it all depends, like I said, on the details.
Thank you so much, Greg, for chatting with us. We appreciate your insight on this. More news in a minute, but first, here's this video from our multimedia colleagues. Welcome back. The former Brazilian President Dilma Rousseff is leading in the polls in the race for the Brazilian Federal Senate. In a survey by the Doxa Institute, Dilma is leading with 20% in her home state, Minas Gerais. In the second place is the Social Democrat Aécio Neves with 11%. The rest of the candidates can only muster 3% interest from potential voters. There will be 2 new senators up for election in October. Panamanian business owners protested against what they consider an imbalance in imports because of changes to regulations based on free trade agreements with the United States and other countries. An example is the so-called Panamanian Security Authority that has made it easier to import food. This phenomenon has led to a decline in local production because the foreign products compete with the national agricultural sector, which is not well supported by the government.
We are protesting because imported products stop small farmers from producing. The minister is talking nonsense. He's saying that our solution will be to export our products, but we can only produce 30%. And every time we want to produce more, they invade us with imports. They even bring expired products that affect the health of the Panamanian people.
In Peru, people are protesting against corruption in the parliament. Peru has been plagued by multiple scandals. Most recently, the former Justice Minister Salvador Herresi had to resign on Friday after a TV station released a recording of a phone conversation between the minister and a judge discussing plans to trade favors for lighter sentences.
The organized crime is governing Peru. Criminals disguised as judges and managed by politicians are governing our people. They took justice away from us. We are protesting to stop them from governing our lives, the lives of our children and our grandchildren.
Corruption lives inside all the public and judicial institutions. We know that corruption begins in the public administration offices. All of the authorities, president, congressmen, mayors and governors use judicial corruption to stay in power indefinitely, so they can eliminate all legal accusations made by the people and pretend to be innocent. All they do is bribe judges and attorneys, so they will never be investigated and prosecuted for their crimes.
Students of the National Autonomous University of Honduras have clashed with riot police in Tegucigalpa. Hundreds of police suppressed students with tear gas who had built a barrier blocking a road to demand lower fuel prices. Around 500 students of the National University had blocked Suyapa Boulevard in the east of the city, preventing the passage of vehicles. And over 300,000 teachers in Colombia took part in a 24-hour strike to demand that the government help stop the killings of social leaders and teachers. The protesters also demanded more resources and guarantees of the right to education. Paula Fernandez reports from Bogota.
Thousands of teachers mobilized for a national strike in defense of life. Holding pictures of murdered teachers, they paid tribute to those who fight for the right to education in Colombia.
We are against all of the killings that have been taking place. And now, the killings of teachers, which started shortly after Iván Duque won the elections, we are also facing threats and forced displacement.
Teachers denounced the recent murder of Luis Gabriel Gómez, who was the head teacher of a school in Putumayo. They demanded that the prosecutor's office investigate these crimes.
They are killing teachers in front of their class. Just today, they killed a principal in Putumayo. There is no respect for life or for social protest.
The strikers also demanded a higher quality of education and denounced budget cuts for public education and the lack of guarantees on the part of the government.
Colombia is facing an ongoing education crisis. They are cutting our budgets and building more and more private schools using public resources, while existing state schools are falling apart.
For members of the Teachers Federation, the future education policies of Iván Duque are of great concern. They say the new Ministry of Education doesn't represent the interests of teachers.
Sadly, we were hoping for a minister who knew about education, who knew about our struggle, and who truly supported the cause.
The teacher strike was called for 24 hours, with nearly 330,000 teachers joining the fight. Teachers in Cauca, Nariño, and Putumayo demonstrated in the city of Cali, and others did the same in Bucaramanga, Barranquilla, Cartagena, and Medellín.
Authorities from the Amara communities in Bolivia prepare to face an old problem that gets worse every day: contamination in the rivers and fields where they keep their crops and their cattle.
This is the main plaza in the municipality of Laja, almost 47 miles from La Paz. Original Aymara authorities are debating in the assembly regulations to face problems created by pollution.
We're suffering. We have no drinking water. We take our water from the Seque River, which comes from the city of El Alto, and this is affecting both animals and people.
Entonces, esto ya ha afectado a los animales, al propio humano.
The water is contaminated. It carries dead dogs and cats, plastic bottles. Sometimes the river rises and seeps into our wells, contaminating our drinking water.
Aymara communities from the Laja municipality are getting sick. Their rivers are contaminated with the waste of El Alto, which in turn contaminates the fields where their cattle feeds and where they grow their crops. These lands are also next to the international highway that leads to the border with Peru and to the Desaguadero River.
There's a lot of contamination coming from El Alto. A lot of garbage comes from there. And people also throw garbage from the highway. We have 3 rivers, Chalajahuira, Catari, and Pallina, which are also highly contaminated and hurt our crops and cattle.
Tanto Río Chalajahuira, Río Catari, y también Río Pallina.
The contaminated rivers that pass by urban centers affect these communities the most, especially the cattle that drinks from these rivers.
This is an international highway that connects Peru with Bolivia, and the people that pass by here keep throwing out their garbage.
Aymara communities of the Laja municipality are working to approve a regulation for the national law of environmental care. They hope this can improve their situation by imposing fines for contaminating the environment.
Freddy Morales, Telesur, Bolivia.
Heavy rainfall in the Dominican Republic has caused 2 main rivers in Santo Domingo to overflow and amass huge amounts of garbage on the coast of the Caribbean island.
This is how the water of Santo Domingo's Broadway looks after several days of cleaning efforts of the hundreds of tons of plastic that overtook the coast of the Dominican capital.
The Ministry of Public Works encourages the people to take part in the conservation of their environment and of natural resources, because without them we cannot live. And we have to be aware of this. We need to stop littering streets, rivers, beaches, and the sea, because that greatly affects the environment.
Authorities worked together with volunteers for several days, collecting and classifying the trash in between plastics, dead animals, tree branches, and other kinds of waste that are thrown away in the neighborhoods located along the Osama and Isabel rivers.
Garbage greatly affects people on the river. These people are fishermen. We are waiting for the government to try and fix this because there are many children who are ill.
But although many blame the government, this is not just a problem of the state. It's a problem of education, since a lot of people throw their trash on the streets and rivers, which is then dragged into the Caribbean Sea, contaminating their waters and making fishing difficult.
This contamination happens because nowadays people are not cleaning after themselves, like before. Now they throw their trash in the river.
The damage caused by the improper disposal of plastics and other waste greatly affects the environment and therefore the health and well-being of all living beings. If people don't understand the magnitude of the damage caused by the accumulation of residues in inappropriate places, the catastrophic consequences will continue on a global level.
Dominica's Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit has proposed measures to create what his government calls the world's first climate-resilient nation to protect the planet. Starting January 1st, 2019, a number of items considered to be harmful to the environment will be banned, including plastic straws, plates and cutlery, as well as styrofoam cups and containers. It was part of his 2018-2019 fiscal budget.
The major project under the Ministry of Environment, Climate Resilience, Disaster Management and Urban Renewal is the Disaster Vulnerability Reduction Project, which is allocated $15.6 million. The other environmental projects are supporting sustainable ecosystems, building resistance to effects of climate change, and low-carbon development path, promoting energy-efficient lighting and solar photovoltaic technologies.
But opposition leader Lennox Linton isn't convinced. He believes the government had ample chances to make Dominica climate resilient.
How much of the damage visited on Dominica in those two disasters was the result of things that had to be done that were not done? The resilience we expected never materialized because the Climate Resilience Initiative had no philosophical or cultural moorings, no people consensus, no youth buy-in, and through it all, the foundation principles of democratic governance were excluded.
The Grenadian economy is growing, according to the latest International Monetary Fund reports. The IMF expects to see 3% growth in Grenada in 2018 and 19. The IMF said strong activity in the island's construction, tourism and education sectors helped the economy to grow by 4.5% in 2017. Unemployment fell from 28% in 2017 to 23.6% the following year, and inflation has fallen to below 1%. Well, time now for another break, but join us again after this look at what our multimedia colleagues are reporting. Welcome back. Mali is going to the polls on Sunday to elect its new president. For the 8 million voters, security concerns will be the main deciding factor. There are 24 candidates for the 8 presidential elections. The contest will be between the incumbent president Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta and his leading rival Soumaïla Cisse. If no one wins a clear majority, a second round of voting will take place on the 12th of August. Violence between different communal groups and attacks by militants has killed at least 300 people just this year, and people are looking for stronger government action to calm the turmoil.
What we need in particular is security, and especially security. Development comes through it, so security is a priority. Once you have it, then development will come with infrastructures and roads. And not only one road, but all the roads. Gao needs these things to develop.
Celebrations in Marie, Pakistan have begun as partial counts poise Imran Khan to be the new prime minister. Crowds have gathered in the streets to celebrate the expected victory of Imran Khan's PTI party, although official results have not been released. Khan has hit them for 6 runs, even amid allegations of vote rigging, allegations that the Electoral Commission denies.
I want mutual beneficial relations with the United States, relations that can be good for both countries. Until now, our relation with the US is one way. They think they fund Pakistan for fighting the war, but Pakistan has suffered great loss. Now, we want a balanced relationship between the two countries.
Protesters have gathered in Washington, D.C. on the day of the migrant reunification deadline. Activists alongside children took to the streets chanting, "I'm a child, families belong together," to express their frustration with the Trump administration's zero-tolerance immigration. A court ordered the administration to reunite children with their parents within 30 days, but according to some of the protesters, the government won't be able to meet the deadline.
There's no way that the government can reunify every single child by the deadline today, and that's because they never had a plan to put these families back together in the first place. The only reason that they are being held accountable is because of the American people, and that's why we're not going to let up until every child is reunified and the zero humanity policy is ended, because that's what created this crisis.
I have been arrested several times, and it is the most horrible thing that could happen to a mother, a father, be separated from our children, put the child out of our arms. We don't know the future we are going to have.
The Greek Defense Minister Panos Kamenos has met with distraught residents as he visited Mati, the area engulfed by wildfires. Residents blame local authorities for not doing enough to limit the damage and the loss of human life. Relatives have been trying to identify the dead. However, this is proving to be a challenge because many of the bodies are so badly burnt. Our correspondent in Athens, Habai Abide, has more.
So far, there are 83 persons confirmed dead and 187 injured. The identification of bodies found several days after the fires has begun. Rescue operation teams will continue to cover the affected areas, having checked 75% of destroyed homes in an attempt to try and locate the 82 persons still missing. The identification of corpses will continue during the following days, and the government has announced a €3 million emergency budget to help the wildfire victims. Each family will receive approximately €5,000. There will also be scholarships and tax reductions for people who lost their houses and vehicles. We have received a lot of rain in the past 2 days, and the areas affected by the fires are now flooded. There are no victims of the floodings, just vehicles swept away by water.
Thanks, Habai, for that report, and thanks for watching. We've come to the end of this newscast. For these and many other stories, you can find them on our website at telesurtv.net/English. You can also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Sunny Gray. Thank you so much for watching.
Enjoy our programming from Monday to Friday, where you'll find the best information on innovation, conservation, human well-being, and human rights.